Hi, my name's Keith Cooper, and in this short video, addressing a question I was recently asked, somebody wanted to know what monitor settings I used for when I'm editing photos. If you've got a hardware calibrator, and there are quite a few different sorts of them, you'll find that they have options for different settings. If you also read on forums and the like, you'll find all kinds of suggestions as to what the proper settings are and various things like that. First up, as long as you're calibrating your monitor, and calibration also generates a profile which the system uses for display, as long as you're doing that, then you've made the biggest step forward. What about the settings? Some people say, oh, well, if you're going to be doing print, you should have your monitor set to something like D50 or 5000K. They're similar, not quite the same, they're different terms for it, but you'll see them on software settings for it. And that's recommended for print use. Well, personally, I find, and I've always found, D50, 5000K or even 5500K, D55 on some displays, is just too warm. It feels dull. I don't like editing in it. However, the thing to remember is that's if you're setting up a graphics lab and you're working commercial print, then you need to be careful about these things. If you're just printing your own photos, you can be a little more slack about it. I know some people think there has to be actual numbers, that everything has to be precise and perfect. No. It's about getting things to work for you. As I say, I find 5000 too warm. So my main monitors, that's not this one, my main monitors are 32-inch larger 4K monitors that I use for editing. They are set for D65 or 6500K, which is a pretty standard setting. Why do I do that? Because I'm not editing photos all the time. I'm checking email, I'm writing documents, I'm doing other stuff. If I kept switching between them, when you switch, it takes a while for your visual system to adapt to the change. So if I was to switch my monitor from 6500 down to 5000 because I was going to be editing some pictures for print, then I would probably have to go out, come back, make myself a cup of tea, come back, and then I would have adapted in the meantime. Our visual system is very good at adapting to things. In here at the moment, all lighting around here is roughly 4000K, and in fact this monitor is set to 4000K. It's horrendous to actually try and edit pictures on. You can get used to it, but it's set this way so it looks okay on video, so that it actually looks similar to what I see here when I see it on a video. And it means that if I show a print on here, there's a fair chance it'll match quite well the actual physical print as well. But that's just the video production. If we're talking for print, for editing for print, I wouldn't use this setting. I wouldn't use 4000. I'd have this set at 6500. In fact, this laptop screen is near 6500, and if I open this one, it will look brilliant, bluey white compared to that. My eyesight's now, I've been sitting here for a few minutes, my eyesight's adapted to this, and this doesn't look unduly warm. It looks fine. It just goes to show how much we can adapt to things. So for mixed use, I choose D65. Now, one of the things is that when you look at prints, what sort of print lighting should you use? Well, as long as it's consistent lighting, and ideally it matches where you're going to be showing your prints, then also you've got quite a bit of flexibility in that. Now, some people will buy expensive light fittings and bulbs and go for a rigorously controlled lighting system. Now, I've got, and it's under a pile of stuff at the moment, so I can't show it, a viewing stand which is about D5000, a D50, and it is adjustable in brightness. Now I can use that for viewing, consistent viewing. It's about consistency is the main thing. If you use a particular desk light, I reviewed one called the Graphilight a while ago that I use for quick print checking. It's nothing special. If you really want to go the whole hog and get specialist lights, by all means, knock yourself out, spend the money, get it. I'm going to say that with experience, it doesn't probably contribute that much. Now, if I was setting up a studio and I was showing people where I made my prints and everything like this, and it was part of my sales pitch, then I would have expensive lighting. Expensive lighting, well, that just goes to show that my prints are worth it, isn't it? It's marketing. Just remember, there's always a lot of marketing in all of this stuff. So what about, that's the screen color temperature. What screen brightness do I use? If I remember, I can't remember what this one is set to. This one's been adjusted specifically for video, but my main monitors are set at 90 candelas per square meter, or you'll see see different units, but 90 CDM, something like that. That is because I work in a relatively dim room, and that's fine for me. Maybe in slightly brighter conditions, you might have it set to 100. I wouldn't want to go much more than that, because our perception, certainly for a print workflow, because our perception of contrast changes with higher brightnesses. What you really want to make sure is that when you're sitting watching the screen, that the brightest source of light in your visual field is the screen. And then your eyesight will adapt its white point, so your own internal color temperature or white balance will be set to the white of the screen. Now I'm here in this 4000K lighting. Here, when I look at this looks absolutely bang on neutral grey to me. If I was to look at this screen in normal lighting, different type of lighting, it might look coloured. But if this is the brightest bit that I can see, the screen's in front of me, so why monitor hoods are a useful thing as well. They help reduce the brightness around, they reduce glare off the screen. I say 90, 100, something out, whatever works for you. Because having your screen too bright is the #1 cause of prints coming out too dark. Now, that's the settings for the monitor. There's one other bit I really feel I ought to cover connected with editing images on a screen, and that is your screen background. Remember I said about brightness and how your eyesight adapts to things? Well, this monitor here, I've got a medium darkish grey background as my desktop. There's nothing, no bright colours, no pretty pictures, just a grey background. That's fine, that's great for editing. One of the things you should watch out for, and this has become popular in recent years because user interfaces change, fashions change as to how they look of displays and things. Be careful editing your images for print, this is, on a black background. A black background, like I've got set here, will increase the perceived contrast of the image. Now that's great, yeah, and particularly this is true for black and white, I find, is that I'm trying to get the tonal balance right in a print. With this black background, this actually looks quite high contrast. When I print it and it's on white paper, particularly if it's in a mat, I mount it somewhere and it's surrounded by a lighter colour, then suddenly the print looks a little dull. Particularly if I've printed it on, say, an art paper, which has a lower tonal range and the blacks aren't quite so deep. What I would say, if you're editing and you're unsure of tonal contrast, you're unsure how things are coming out, try changing your background to a grey or even to white, just to check things. Now there we go, I've changed that to grey, and to me instantly the whole contrast of the picture has changed between using that and using a black background. Now, the defaults in a lot of editing packages have in recent years moved towards black. Why is that? Well, fashion is one thing, but also it gives your images, your pictures, more punch. And they look more contrasty, they look better. Works for colour images as well. I've just got a black and white one here because this is where I notice it most when I'm doing prints. Because I'm not a lover of intense whites and blacks in my black and white. My black and whites has a lot of grey in it, and the tonality is important. I will have blacks, but I want a tonal range. I don't go for strongly contrasting black and white. Never have been particularly attracted to it. Seen some great images, but it's never been something I've particularly enjoyed myself. This one here in Wells Cathedral, is the tonality is all in the stone. It's the texture of the stone that I'm after. In this scene, I'm after the clouds, I'm after the waves, I'm after the mistiness that you get. This is on the Oregon coast, and I'm after that feel to it. And having this black surround here can easily make the picture just seem a bit more contrasty than it is. And so when I print it, suddenly it doesn't look so good. So there we go. I'll switch that back to a grey background there, editing on there, and it just looks a bit more reliable. So there you go. Temperature, I use D65, 6500. I just rely on my eyesight adapting to things. Would note that when you look at a print under a lamp of any sort, do not hold your print up to the screen. The absolute worst way of making comparisons. Put your print at one side, illuminated. So look at the image there, turn your head and look here. The actual physical process of moving your head partially resets your visual system. The actual physical movement is important, not just glancing from one. So actually looking at a print, so looking at an image and then looking at a print at that, and that will change how you want, how your white point varies and your white balance for your own visual system. You can get an awful lot more complex than this. What I would say is if you see somebody prescribing a long reason of you need your settings at particular settings and brightnesses, and you must do this and you should have this, and they start going on about ISO standards and things, half the time they're just trying to look clever. They may actually be setting up a graphics center, a commercial print, and it may well be relevant. But for most people, and I include myself in this most of the time, it doesn't matter that much. The key is to get your monitor calibrated, to use, if you're working colour, ideally a monitor with a wider gamut, so that you've got a better indication of how things look. But it's about being reasonable, and it's about consistency. So hope that's cleared up a few questions people have. Please do ask questions. It was somebody's question asking me this that sort of made me think, well, I ought to actually just cover this in a short video. So thanks for watching. Please do subscribe to the channel, and thank you.